Hey guys, I wanted to share with you today our skill of the day from your iReady packet, which is going to be pages 15 and 16, finding the theme of this poem, Darkness in the Desert. So you should have pages 15 and 16 in front of you to work with me on finding the theme of a poem. And I know that you probably have already covered that in class. You probably already have a firm grasp on how to find a theme, but we're going to reinforce that skill today in this video. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the definition of a theme. And I know that you've heard this in class. I saw you guys go over this in class, and so I know that you know that the theme is the overall message of whatever you're reading. In this case, it's going to be this poem, and I wrote this out for you guys to look at once again. The message, and you can see theme hidden in there, can't you? The message. So you have to ask yourself the question, what is the author, what is the author trying to say to me over everything else? What does the author want me to take away after reading this? What does he want me to remember? Maybe it's a lesson. What's the lesson that we're learning? It can be a phrase, it can be a sentence, but what does the author want me to learn after reading this? So the poem that we're going over today is called Darkness in the Desert. It's page 15. So I want you to pause this video and I want you to go read the poem for yourself, Darkness in the Desert, okay? All right, so you should have read for yourself Darkness in the Desert. Now look with me quickly on page 16. And so in helping us find the theme of this poem, there's a couple of questions that we can ask ourselves. The first one is, what is the topic? What's the topic of the poem? And I have a couple of things that I've already typed on here that we're gonna go over, a couple of possible answers. What is the topic of the poem? So after you've read through the poem once, you can go back and you can skim through the poem a second time and look and see if you can figure out what the topic of the poem is. Now, the header of the poem tells us a pretty big clue about what might be the topic of the poem, Darkness in the Desert. So where are we? We're in the desert, right? So what I wrote was Darkness in the Desert, how animals live in the desert. But how did I come to that conclusion? The second question helps us prove how we came to the conclusion of what the topic is. What are the details about the topic? For that, you can most definitely use context clues, and you can use direct quotes from the poem in proving what the details about the topic are, showing what those are. So I have a couple of lines underlined. The first one is 1 and 2 for desert animals. The day is not a time for work or play. So we know we're talking about desert animals. Lines 15 and 16. By 1s and 2s, by 5s and 10s, the animals creep from their dens. Talking about whenever everybody else is asleep at night, the animals are coming out. So we're talking about how the animals are behaving. Lines 20, 21, and 22. The dark is good, the light is worse. The daytime is the time to rest. For desert creatures, night is best. So once again, that's another few lines in our poem that are helping me come to the conclusion about what my topic was for the poem, and giving some details, asking what are the details about the topic. So my topic, Darkness in the Desert, and how animals live in the desert, and then the details that I'm giving about the topic are coming straight from the poem. Desert animals live differently than any other animals in the world. They hide during the day because of the extreme temperatures, and they stay awake all night when the weather is nice and cool. So that's coming straight from the poem, the details about my topic. The third question, what are the speaker's reflections on the topic? So what is the speaker saying about this topic? Now that we've found the topic, the desert and how the animals live in the desert, what is the speaker saying about that? And what I said is, The speaker stresses that the animals come out when the rest of the world is still, and that for these animals, the dark is good and the light is worse. And I even put quotations in this one so you can even see that I'm using the poem, taking quotations directly out of the poem to answer that question as to what the speaker's reflections on the topic are. Okay, so now that we've answered those 3 questions, what the topic is, the details that are about the topic, and what the speaker's reflection on the topic are, now we're taking the poem and we're looking at the poem big picture, because the theme is the overall message, right? So now we're looking at the poem as a big picture, which is going to help us discover what the theme is, or come to conclusions about what the theme is. So I want you at home to read your poem once again, jot a couple of things, jot your topic down and a couple of quotes down, and really think about what you think the theme is. And maybe write down, pause this video and write down what you think the theme is before we talk about it. Okay, so what I wrote down for the theme is light and darkness have different joys and struggles for different beings. Light and darkness have different joys and struggles for different beings. And the reason why I chose that as the theme is because we're talking all about how the desert animals are reacting to the daytime versus the nighttime. And is it similar to how we act? Is it similar to how we live, or is it different? It's different, right? These animals are nocturnal. Their environment is so drastically different than ours that it's too hot to live like we do. It's too hot to be out and about in the middle of the day, and so they sleep during the day and they're awake all night long. So how darkness and light affects different beings. And so your theme could have been a little bit different than mine, but make sure you're talking about darkness and light, and make sure you're talking about how that affects different people. It affects different people differently. Maybe you like nighttime better. Maybe you're a night owl. Maybe you like to stay up all night long, whereas maybe I like to be awake really early. So it affects different people in a different way. So that is the theme of this poem. So if you're going to get anything from this video, just remember the way we discuss what a theme is as the overall message to whatever you're reading, in this case, the overall message to the poem. And also remember that you can ask yourself some questions that are going to help you figure out what the theme is if you don't necessarily know. Think about what the topic is, and think about what's going on in the different sections of your poem that are proving the details about that topic, and then you're looking at the big picture, which is going to help you discover the big picture message or the theme of that reading or poem. All right, thanks guys. That is finding the theme of a poem.